Nation, we have a candidate profile here running for the U.S. transhuman, somebody who wants to run as the party member of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. It's John Kerecz. Hello, John, and welcome to Dead Nation.
Hi there. Thanks for having me today. How's your day been?
Fantastic, thank you very much. And you have a great name. I love the name.
Yeah, we talked about that briefly before the show started. It's actually Hungarian and it stands for crucifix. It was originally STZ at the end. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to know the background of your name and where it comes from.
Absolutely, I know it's just such a cool name, and I really like it. So I thought the audience might want to know. Anyway, love the flag as well. You're looking very patriotic there. You want to be the president of the United States, so the flag is good. All right, so we're going to kick off with your candidate profile. Is there anything you want to tell the audience about who you are? A quick pitch on who you are, and anything
Sure.
anything you want to sum up?
I'm probably one of the older candidates. I'm just well pickled. But started my interests, of course, I say my interest in what you could say is transhumanism. I realized I thought about this. I always loved the classic horror movies. And my favorites, of course, were Frankenstein and the Dracula. And I thought to myself, boy, that's something right in line with transhumanism, actually. Frankenstein was kept alive and brought back from the dead and put back together. And Dracula was immortal. So I thought that was kind of interesting, I didn't think about that before, and I thought about that one day. And of course, I've always very much loved science, very much into Star Trek. Started me out as a kid, and if you read about me a little bit, I had back in 2014, I actually went to the edge of space in a MiG-29 in Russia. So that's just where you just break space and come back down. It's not even high enough to be considered an astronaut because you're just breaking and seeing the black space and the curvature of the Earth. But it was very, very interesting to do. Did fine with G's 5.5, but when we went to 7.8 the one time, I did get a little sick, shall we say? Let's just put it that way. Although I was warned ahead of time to bring extra underpants for the flight. But another thing about me is, as far as longevity and extending your life, I go back to the days of, I don't know if everybody remembers Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, who wrote books on longevity and extending your life back in the 70s. As a matter of fact, I still buy some vitamins and, shall we say, concoctions from them because they're still out there selling them. So I date back to those days. And the other thing, too, about me is if you count all the individual fake parts I have in my body, I am up to about 11 different fake parts. Replacements, titanium, ceramic. I've been blind in both eyes. I've had 5 eye operations. I've implants in my eyes, fake lens in my eyes and stuff. So other than my brain being tampered with, I'm already kind of becoming something more than a regular human. So, and
Oh. Well, there you go.
so
That's really interesting. That's fascinating. And also, you're already transhuman essentially. Did you do one of the Gennadi's "I am transhuman" short videos?
no, I did not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you should get onto that. You're pretty much on the way there. With all the different implants and things. So that's very interesting. All right, so we'll race into your profile. It's very good to have you on the show, and thank you very much for
No,
taking
thank
time
you.
out. And again, I love the flags in the background, very patriotic. So that's very good. And it's so interesting to know that you went on Virgin Galactic 1.0, or before it was a thing. So that's also
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, I joke about the fact that it was 1977 technology. I mean, a MiG-29 is not super technology, and the
Yeah.
pressure suit they put me in looked like it was something out of the 50s. I mean, but it did the part.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. Yeah. So that's your profile picture. Just that's what
Yes.
that is. Wow, that's so cool. All right, there you go.
And two of the other ones are when I was up at after I had my hip replaced. Actually, I was 6 months after that. I hiked to the base camp of Mount Everest on the Tibetan side. That's what some of those other pictures are from.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Understood. Understood. So you're a man of adventure. I like it, and it takes that sort of gumption to run for the United States, president of the United States. So yeah, here you are. All right. So officially, formally, discuss your background and why I think it would render you an effective president of the United States. We've already been over a bit briefly, but you know.
Well, I've worked for the past over 35 years of combined work of science and engineering. I've worked with the government in and out in different capacities. So I'm used to working with the government. I've been on some councils and committees. I've been on environmental committees with one of the townships I lived in. Actually, two of the townships I've been lived in already. Uh, I'm very active with different charities and activities and signing petitions. I quite often I get so much email every day, which is it's hard to keep track of things, but I get these things about different activities up and sign this petition and stuff to help with rights and different activities. So I'm very much trying to be active and stay active, and I have worked with the government, local, state, federal government for over 35 years. Presently, also, I'm active with some of the space organizations, and I go down to DC quite often to petition for some upcoming events and for them to sign certain bills and stuff that are being passed. So I'm active with that, with the National Space Society, the Planetary Society, and I do work also with Explore Mars. At the last summit this Explore Mars had, I was actually one of the executive staff.
All right, fantastic. What do you consider to be the most important aspects of transhumanism and the kinds of impacts it should have upon the world?
Well, I think some of the most important parts are, well, longevity, but I think that longevity sometimes just people think of that as extending your life forever and never dying. But I think there's something I wanted to stress here and talk about is the fact that sometimes I think it is important to consider integrating stuff into how our world runs right now. So that would mean that you not only look for longevity, but present day improving everybody's health, period. And through that, also longevity. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that aren't even thinking about living forever or never dying. They're worried about maybe making it through their 30s or through their 40s. I mean, so we have to take care of all that. I mean, helping people with their regular health on top of the ability to live even longer is an important aspect, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say there.
Absolutely. It makes sense.
But science overall is very important. It's very important to me. And one of the things I'm going to tie this in with space and the space program that I think a lot of times people don't realize is, people say, why go to space when we have a lot of problems here on our own planet? But if you're considering the technology that we have to develop and the things we have to figure out how to enable men to live better in space for long periods of time and on Mars itself or on the moon, we're going to come up with other technologies and other medicines that are going to help our present day life here on Earth also. There's things that we came up with when we went to the moon that we use every day that people don't realize. I mean, that's going to push technology that's going to be beneficial to us through the science that we develop while we're doing space exploration. I like space exploration, so I'll mention that along with longevity, of course.
Personally, I'm a big fan of space exploration as well. More exposure to different ideas and different scenarios. Enhances scientific thinking and scientific progress. I totally agree with that. What are the areas of the U.S. Transhumanist Party platform that you identify most strongly with?
Well, I'd say the longevity and the replacing, of course, replacing of parts because I kind of have to, and keeping you alive. For two reasons, too. I mentioned it from the science point, from the other way around of going into space and the side effects of that. I feel also the longer we can promote our own health, the more we can hopefully do ourselves. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that maybe if they lived longer, who knows what things they could have benefited to society and to the human race. If that makes sense how I'm saying that. So through longevity, there's other things that people might not think about that would come about that.
Yeah, here you've got technological advocacy, solution to social issues such as eradicating mass hunger, solving currently incurable diseases, providing cheap and affordable healthcare, giving a quality
Right.
education for all, and generating cheaper, clean power for everyone. And this will add to human longevity and aid our environment slash climate. You think you?
I'm,
Is there
I'm
anything
sorry.
you want to expand on within those? Eradicating mass hunger, for example. Do you think this is an absolute priority?
Well, I do think hunger is a priority. And again, like I was saying, once see, that's another thing I mentioned about space I was trying to get to. When we're looking at growing plants in places that they aren't supposed to grow, I'm sure that we're going to be able to come up with technology to grow plants more efficiently where they normally would grow. And therefore, like even today, I know our yield of plants is so much better than it used to be. Although people complain about how we've genetically altered food, I believe my understanding is that we grow food for like twice the amount of people and like a third of the land that we used to, or something like that. There's some phenomenal numbers of differences because of man having altered food. And basically, like corn itself is a food that didn't look like corn did originally. Man has tinkered with that.
Hmm.
So through our development in other directions, it can help us to also solve other problems.
You've also got here solving currently incurable diseases. Would you include, say, with the solving, so for example, as quantum computing comes online, we're going to be able to unlock some more progress in this field with solving incurable diseases. But would you also add into there, or would you consider helping people cope with the transitionary phase of solving those diseases? So diseases that people previously had, and now they're not going to have them. I mean, there's a psychological shift there. There's societal shift where, say, for example, heart disease, or that's not the one I'm talking about, but things like heart disease, which kills so many people, now those people aren't going to die, and those people who expected to die are going to live longer, and there's going to be a psychological impact there. Have you got any social policies that would assist people who are going to be impacted by the reduction in some of these diseases?
Well, I do. One of the things I do believe heavily in is education, but not just education as far as the education of children growing up, but I mean the education of society. And I think that's a thing that people have to be educated to the fact that now that's not going to happen, but we also have to give them other things to do and ways to work them into different activities. Uh, I know I'm going to talk about a little bit of regular politics, but right now we have people pushing the new Green Deal in the United States. Some of the Democrats are pushing what they call the new Green Deal, which is still reliant basically on the New Deal from before, but it has environmental things added into it where you're assuring people jobs and stuff. And I think the thing to do is to keep people working, but create jobs and get them involved in what new type work is there, and that's something that keeps them beneficial. People like if people aren't working, I think it gives them more time to sometimes. What's that old thing? The idle mind, the idle hands, or the work of the devil. Somewhere,
Mm.
it's. But I mean, psychologically and emotionally, that's good for people. But education, not just as far as children growing up being educated, but the populace and society as a whole. They have to be educated as far as what's out there for them if there's more longevity, what things they're going to be able to do. Also, the fact that as life does change, it's not. I've dealt with a lot of people and I realize they equate themselves and their worth with their job. So my point to that is, say they live longer and there were things that they were doing when they were younger, but now because of technology being different, those jobs don't exist anymore. But they have to be made to realize that what they're doing now is important and it matters to society and that it helps the whole, so that they have a sense of being needed and being necessary, not just being, why am I still here? I think another issue you're going to have to deal with in some ways is maybe if some people start having more longevity. I know as you get older, your feeling is you have a sense of, I have it happen to me with being older. When you're still alive and you're having more and more friends and family pass away, I think as we find that there's going to be some society whose lives are extended and some people's lives aren't extended, that's going to be an emotional stress on them also that we might not necessarily think of. And I think the best way to deal with that is maybe you might even have to offer some sort of counseling for people. But I think education might still be the best way to do it. Push it out there to people that they know that they are essential to the population, there's things for them to do, and that they're important. And I think the same thing with the environment. I think sometimes we find that people aren't really being properly educated to what's going on in the environment. And then they think, oh, well, we don't need this, we don't need that. And they don't really realize some of the issues that have been happening. Because other people, I hate to say this, might be more greedy as far as the bottom dollar than the concern for people. Actually, I heard over in your country they were having some peak temperatures not too long ago. I had heard.
Yeah, so yeah.
Speaking of the environment and climate control,
July was the hottest recorded month recorded ever in recorded history, or 200 years, or whatever the however long they've been recording it. So yeah, it was the hottest one ever. So that's kind of interesting. Here you've got generating cheaper power for everyone. You going all coal, all nuclear, all Green New Deal, solar, wind? What are you doing?
well, I have to admit, I used to work for EPA in the nuclear area many years ago, and when I worked on I have my bachelor's and master's in environmental engineering, and I did do a full year of nuclear engineering. I'm not a nuclear engineer; I'm an environmental engineer. But nuclear is a good, clean source of power, and people are scared of what can happen if there is an accident. That is true. But what people don't also realize is burning coal on a continuous basis puts off more radiation than a nuclear power plant. When a nuclear power plant is running properly, let me put it that way. You know, coal has isotopes in it that burn and go up into the air, and people don't realize that. I myself right now am working in the alternate energy field with air, solar, electric. My house myself has solar on the roof. The First Lady's house, the next First Lady's house also has solar on it. Although hers doesn't work quite as, she's making a face at me, doesn't quite work as efficiently as mine because I don't really use as much electricity. But very much I'm pushing for the solar. Although some things, some things I find like I have a car that is actually, I get 45 miles per gallon in my car, which is just a gas car. So even a lot of the cars today are so much more efficient than the old day cars were and have a smaller carbon footprint.
I should get you and Jonathan Shatke on another new candidate. He's a nuclear engineer, so it'll be interesting to hear. What are, in your view, some of the major problems in contemporary American society, and how can transhumanism aid in resolving those problems? So what are the problems in contemporary American society that you see from there, Mr. John Kerecz?
Well, I really do. I mean, I think I'm deviating from what you have in front of you, but I'm glad you're trying to keep me online there a little bit. A lot of times I think that we have a problem with some greed in our society right now. And I think businesses are trying to make the dollar any way they can and not paying attention to other things like our environment and our future. I mean, if we invest now in our environment and our future, it'll be there for us. But to me, it seems like society wants the quick fix, wants everything instantaneously, and that reaches into everything. It reaches into social, reaches into business. It just spreads into all our politics and policies of our country. And probably most of the world is like that, to be honest with you, not just the United States. But I think sometimes education can come back to helping people. If today we make the investment in starting to clean up what we do, I think in the future, it'll be more productive in the long run. But I think people a lot of times don't want to let go In this country, as far as jobs, people don't necessarily want to let go of, they still think of us as an industrial nation, the United States. I think that time has kind of passed for the United States. I was watching a show the other day where they had a president on there, and somebody went to say, "Oh, can you bring back our factories?" And he hesitated and he said, "No, I can't, because that time has actually passed. What's important now today is for us to move forward and to make sure that people that have lost their jobs can get retrained, and they offer them some form of training so that they can work in the new jobs." People don't realize, people think of the industrial nation, the United States of industrial nation, but most of the world and the United States was a farming country for longer than it was an industrial nation. And the industrial phase actually was a very short part of our time and our history for all of society on this world. So we have to realize that and move ahead and move into the next phases. And I think, as I was saying about education, education is not just for children, it's education of society, of what we really have to do, and not what people that are just interested in the bottom dollar want to tell everybody.
So yeah, so short-term thinking, greed. How can transhumanism aid in resolving these problems? You mentioned education. Do you think that's the only way that you can solve some of these problems?
Technology in itself, when you can bring technology in, when you can lengthen people's lifespan. Say a person realizes, if a person doesn't expect to live past a certain time, I think sometimes you have these people that feel, well, what do I care what happens in the future? I mean, but if there's a possibility that they're going to be here, I think their thoughts might be a little different. So I think.
So you subscribe to Ernst Becker sort of death denial theory, like this death denial theory?
Well, I think I think a lot of times people say, my point was that if they realize they might be around and that their life will be extended, they will think differently about the future than if they say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be here anyhow." It's like when I had some parts put into me, he says, "Oh, well, that should last you the rest of your life. That part's good for 25 years." He said, "That should outlast you." I thought, well, thank you for telling me that. That makes me feel really good. But I think people have that view as in they don't care what they destroy and what they wreck for the bottom dollar today, because they're not going to be around in the future. And I don't think they think about their children or their children's children. But I think if they realize that they themselves might be around longer and live longer, it's more of something you have to be considerate of.
All right, so this is a gritty question. In your view, what aspects of contemporary American politics work well, and what aspects of contemporary American politics are broken or malfunctioning? So, for part one, American politics, what part works well?
Well, I know some people talk about the fact that we have a two-party system, and a two-party system, there should be more parties. But I mean, I think it's good that we do have at least the two-party systems, and then you have some extra parties that pop up here and there. I think that is a great idea, and originally that was a great concept. My argument about the Republicans and the Democrats is the fact that I think over time, it's become the fact that you really can't tell them apart as much as you used to be able to tell them apart. And now I think there are a few new politicians out there. Some of the new younger Democrats seem to be a little bit more when I was younger, I thought of Democrats as being. But it seemed to me that the parties had not really, I think only in concept were they two parties. It was sort of like the same party with two halves, not necessarily two parties. And the thing that also worries me about our system is the fact that there is a lot of backing by industries and companies of our politicians. And of course, they need the money to run. But once they get into the office, then they are kind of pulled like marionettes by the companies that pay for them to get elected. And a lot of those companies hedge their bets anyhow and vote and back both candidates, which again goes back to the fact I'm saying that both parties hadn't become too different. They'd become very similar. So I think the two-party system is good. More parties, I mean, you pop up, and I think that's great. But my concern is the fact that the dual party system had become basically two sides of the same whole, not really different. And the fact is that you have people with the money backing them, pulling the strings. It'd be nice to see, I think, a politician that maybe came in under his own power and didn't need any backers, but I don't know if that's really even possible to be totally like that. And then also, I'm not sure what his agenda would be. You have to worry about that also.
All right, yeah.
Did that actually answer your question?
Yeah, that covered it. If elected president of the United States, what policy measures would you pursue?
Well, I first thing I'd want to push is working towards our climate control and helping with that, and all the technologies that would have to go with that. But that would also have to be, I feel, again, rely heavily on education. Environment, education, and health, I think, would be the big first three things I'd want to push policy-wise. I'd want to make sure people were educated as far as science and what's really going on, not just what people want as far as money. And I'd want to make sure that we were actually working towards the environment. There's a lot of laws and stuff that right now in this country have been being tampered with and lessened in environmental policies. And I was reading a book one day, I can't remember what book it was or what the author was, and he made a really good point that right now, with how the Trump administration had lessened a lot of the restrictions on the environment and different things, that once Trump is not in, this is the perfect opportunity for the people that have been talking about how they wanted to make a change and make things different to actually get in there and rewrite the stuff and actually help with, like I said, the environment and education and health. Health is an issue. It is interesting to me that when you want to try and help people with health, what I see a lot in this country is what policy you have to do. They're very concerned with it seeming like socialism. When they start talking about a healthcare program that takes care of people, they are upset that it's becoming socialism. And I hear a lot of people talking just even in regular conversations. I don't know how to get over, I'm not sure how to write a policy for helping people with health that would not start seeming like socialism to people. And then my view also is a bit of socialism really a bad thing if it's taking care of the people and helping people? In some people's view, like when you talk about the 222, in some people's view, that is sort of a form of socialism. You're supplying this, and this to people. And I've noticed in this country, a lot of people reject that. But then again, if we can't take care of our own people and we throw them out there, what are we really doing? I mean, there has to be something in place to help our people and make sure that they have a minimal life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in the UK, for example, they declared a climate emergency. In Australia, they're looking at declaring a climate emergency, so you might follow suit with that. And in America,
Right.
You've got the big problem in health with Medicare versus Medicaid. You spend something upward of 17, somewhere between 17 to 20% of your GDP already on health initiatives, which is more than the world. So the argument of this whole socialism thing, I find funny, because where does it start? Because Australia does not spend 17% of its GDP on health. The UK does not spend 17% of its GDP on health. So where's all the money going? So it's a really interesting conundrum for those who cry socialism.
You do know if we buy drugs in this country or if we go up to Canada, they're like nothing in price-wise. If we buy the British drugs over the American drugs, it's a big cost difference. So there's money going somewhere.
We talk about this show all the time. It seems to be corporations that are getting socialized and not the people. So there's a problem there.
Other policies, though, talking about that is trade policies and dealing with the rest of the world. I really do think we have to. I'm a big supporter of a global economy, and I think people have to realize that in this day and age, we have to look at it as a global economy, not just my country, your country, but there's a big interaction between us, and there's a big interaction between everybody in the world. And this, as far as technology too, a lot of technology now we don't make in Silicon Valley anymore. We make it in China and different countries. But then we're trying to put tariffs on things, and then some of our factories have trouble because they can't get the parts in that are made in other countries. We have to realize this is a global world, and well, of course, it's a global world, but it's a global economy, and we're all working together. And eventually, as I said, with liking space, we're going to have to realize eventually it's going to be beyond a global economy. We're going to become, let's say, a solar economy as far as the solar system, and we're going to branch out. I always have a funny theory on talking about science and going to space. And, you know, people always are very territorial and tribal. We have a lot of tribalism. If you don't refer to it as tribalism, it's kind of like a territorial, like we're Americans, you're Australians, and then people fight for their territories. But I feel on this planet, once we have people colonizing the moon, we have people colonizing Mars, then you're going to find that I think the people on the Earth will tribalism just to Earth and unify more on this planet, because there's people then on the moon and there's also people on Mars. So it'll be a different view. We'll be more willing to work together here, because then it won't be, oh, that person in that country. It'll be, oh, those people on the moon, it's all their fault. Or those people on Mars, it's our fault. Our economy's bad because of them. You know, we're going to have to put tariffs on the moon then, or we're going to have to put tariffs on Mars, or maybe we'll have to build a wall around our planet so that the people from the moon don't sneak here at night where we don't know they're coming. I don't know. So it's just, it'll change where I think this planet will get along better who's on this planet, but we're still going to be territorial and tribal just against people that are on the other planets and in the other areas.
I like your thinking. It's very crisp. I like your allusion to like TPP and NAFTA and others. It's good. There has to be regulation in there. There has to be sensible politics in there. But you can't not have an economy integrated into the wider global world. Absolutely. If elected president of the United States, what changes? Oh no, I think it actually, if elected, what were you gonna do in your first term? I think that's the question I was up to. What's your first term agenda?
Well, one first term thing I'd like to do is I'd like to actually get a committee together of different people that represent different things, not just science, but also art. I believe art is very important, and I don't believe just transhumanistic art. I mean art. Totally. All types of art. I think art is important for, shall I say, our soul and for our well-being. And I think a lot of science and stuff starts as art in our brains. And art is one of the things I think that make us different and above the animals. Although I have seen chimpanzees paint. I've actually even seen elephants painting with brushes and paint things. So it's not saying that the other animals don't have some ability for art, but I think art's important, not just having people on the committee that deal with science and health and all the basic things. I think it's important to have the view of the artist in there too, to help me decide on better projects and to bring to my attention what is needed. Because I'm only one person, I don't know what's well needed, and it's sort of like what's a good idea. Similar to the idea that, is it the Virgin guy, Bronson? How do you pronounce his last name? Bronson?
Branson, Richard
Branson.
Branson.
Like he has that committee of the elders, he calls it, that he uses to help with projects. Put something together like that can advise me and make me aware of things that I myself might not be aware of. Because there's things that I'm not going to be aware of, but I want to put a committee together that has a well-rounded view of it. I don't necessarily want people that are just interested in, before, like I said, it's not that I don't like money, but I don't want to necessarily make that the bottom line. There's more things there. You want the planet to be here. You want our children and our children's children to enjoy that. And also, if and when we live longer, we want to still be able to enjoy that. We don't want to be, what's the sense of being immortal and having to live in a dome? or not being able to go anywhere. Although you're living forever, there's a lot of enjoyment of the beautiful planet that we should be able to enjoy. We should want to live forever to be able to enjoy the beauty of nature and on any of the planets or in space. We want to not destroy that. So that's why I think it's important to have not just businessmen involved, but other type people, religious people, artists, not just the average scientists and governmental people and generals. We want them too, because you need them also. But we want it to be well-rounded for all of humanity and our concerns. So I'd want to put a committee together like that, sort of like Branson's elders, he calls it, to advise me and help me on projects. Because I'm only one person. There's a lot of things I don't know and won't know.
This you have very much in common with Mr. Charles Holsopple, the 222 guy. He basically argues that he would rely on a committee as well, because he's only one person and they have specialist knowledge in information fields. So talk to Mr. Holsopple about that sort of stuff, because I think you guys line up very closely on that. What are your thoughts on the U.S. Constitution and its relevance and implications in the transhuman era? Are transhumanism and the U.S. current Constitution compatible?
Well, I think I'm trying to remember what I have written here, though, but I believe that our Constitution is based on the fact that sometimes I think they forget, which is we were supposed to be a haven here for the freedom of people, religious and all kinds of reasons. And the Transhumanist Party, which wants different things than some of the other people have been used to, our concepts, the ideas, has a place. And the Constitution is made that it's supposed to be made up of people with different views and different ideas. So I think they work together and the concept is good. I think we have, in this country, I think sometimes we get away from what the original reason of our Constitution was. I think people lose that it was here to take people in and for them to be able to have the freedom of their different views and different desires. You know, America is made up of many different people. At the old days, it's a melting pot. All ideas should be allowed here.
The transhumanist campaign for president is primarily an educational endeavor. What are the key insights about which you would like to educate the public during your campaign? How would you like to educate them? I'm interested to hear this from you, because you're big on education.
Well, I think education has to start in everything with people. Like I said, school, but I feel today that, I hate to say it though, I'll admit it though, but I think social media is a way that we have to get out there and actually push a campaign to educate people. It sounds horrible, because it sounds like we're using the same thing that you feel is being used against us. But I think education in this day and age goes into many things. I said myself that one of the things I want to do, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, is to have monthly meetings on TV, township meetings, go different places, talk to people. I want them to see me. I want to be talking to them. The committee that I would put together to advise me, I'd want them there with me too, so that I am accessible to people. What we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it is accessible and open, and what's the word that you like to use today? Transparent to people. I want to be transparent in the fact that through technology and life extension and better technology and better health, what we can do for the world, what we can do for our country and for the world is out there. So I think when I say multimedia and different things, it kind of scares me, because then it sounds like you're trying to creep into everything and maybe brainwash people. But I don't mean it that way. You want to make the information available to people. Make the information that's available in many different ways. Because I think a lot of times ideas can be squished and not made available to people.
Absolutely. Given that a president would need to act on behalf of the interests of the entire population, about members of the public who are either not transhumanists or maybe implicit transhumanists, what would make you an effective candidate for appealing to them and representing their interests? So,
well, again, like I was saying about our Constitution, originally it was made that people are allowed to have different views. And I think just because, I think what you're going to find is if we extend your lifespan and say the average lifespan becomes 300 years, let's just say that, let's say it could become 300 years. There's going to be people that might not want to extend their life, but that is their freedom to live like that. They can do that whether they want. It shouldn't be, I don't think any views should be imposed on people that don't want them. Now, I have heard the views that then you could maybe end up getting sort of a caste system, because you have the people that want the higher technology, or they want the enhancements, and then you have the ones that don't want the enhancements. I'm not really sure how we would go about trying to make that, again, that you don't end up with some sort of a caste system. But I would hope that through, again, education and talking to the people and getting it out there, that they know that everybody is an important part of society and is just as important as each other. But not everybody is going to want to do that. But getting back, I think I was a little bit off key with that, sorry. But I think as somebody in power, if you are put in power by the people, it is what you should be doing is to listen to everyone, not just the group that you come from yourself. That's why, like I said, I'd want to put a group together that's very diversified, that would be giving me information, to weigh all the information. Because you can't do that. There's going to be different people, and each person's just as important as the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you were touching on a very good point there with the caste system thing, because on one hand you're trying to argue the old tenets of America, which is freedom from government, trying to be free and independent, but at the same time, the choices that relate to that are based in the freedom are going to lead to a divergence. Some people are going to want technology enhancements, some are going to stray away. And without a government enforcing a policy of you will take enhancements or you will not, without that policy, you will end up with different groups doing different things. You're not going to, no one's going to probably force the Amish to take these enhancements unless the government came down and forcibly put these in. So, marrying freedom and technological enhancements is a hard thing to do, and perhaps whatever you think is the best on that option. But I do think that was a very good point. I don't think you were straying away from anything there. And education I agree with that. Education is at the core, because if they understand, and it's less scary, it's less demonic, or whatever they want to phrase it as, and it's more helpful to the ongoing health of the nation. And for the patriots out there, it's more patriotic, because you want a healthy nation, right? You don't want to be spending 70% of your GDP on health. You want to spend that on, I don't know, building architecture or flags or something.
I think also it's big to integrate new concepts into the framework you already have, so that it's not. I have seen, like, years ago I did, I was doing a lot of engineering work, and then I went into doing a lot of IT work. And I found that the IT stuff has become very integrated into everything, that it isn't as separate as it used to be. And talking about new sciences and new technologies and new medicines and new medical treatments, that's something I feel that the best way to approach that sometimes is to make sure it integrates into what is already there. And you don't want to change a system abruptly. Shall we say abruptly or drastically? You want to integrate and ease into different things and stuff. I find that I have thought man is kind of resistant to a lot of change. I mean, I remember in the 60s when we thought by this time that we would be living on Mars already. We'd be flying around in hovercrafts and stuff. But we're not. We also thought there for a while that our houses would be built underground, and the earth would be beautiful because the houses would be down underneath, and you wouldn't have as much deterioration of the above environment. But I find man still builds houses. You go to other cities that have been here, you go to London, you go to Rome, you go to Athens, and really have our houses changed that much in thousands of years? I mean, they really haven't. So the changes you make have to be integrated into society that it is accepted, and because if you don't integrate it in a manner, even if it is good for the people, it'll be refused. It'll be pushed away. It'll be denied. So that's an important thing to keep in mind too, I think.
So I've only got one more question, and it's is aging a disease? Would you get the FDA on, or as a president, would you classify aging as a disease?
I don't necessarily think of aging as a disease. I think it's how our body is designed. But I think it's anything. It's designed in a manner maybe for a time that's not exactly appropriate right now. I would maybe consider it an ailment, but maybe not a disease. I don't know if it's because there are some people that do live longer than others. So I think it's a natural thing built into our system. I think, but a lot of things I think are us as human beings, something that we should try and overcome. It's within our nature to always overcome our limitations. I don't know if I consider it a disease. It might be something that this time is natural, then in the future won't be natural. So,
all right.
I don't know if that really answered the question, but I don't know if I necessarily consider it a disease.
That's fine. That's your answer. That's what it is. So thank you very much, John Kerecz, for coming on Dead Nation. I want to have you on again at some point if you'd like to come back. You're free to come back at any time. We'll
sure.
Get you on with
That'd
other
be nice.
candidates. Have discussions and debates before the primary season ends. And we can talk about a whole bunch of other things as well. Like once we do that, we can talk about all the different technologies, nanotech, biotech. We can talk about.
Because I like the concept of nanotech. I always have.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. A lot of these transhumanist technologies are really interesting. And the concepts and things. But that's your candidate profile. That's who you are. I like you a lot on this. I think you're a really good thinker, and I like
Well,
I think I like about you is this sort of globally integrated thinking. I like that because although America first is very important for Americans. I mean, for me, I'm not an American, so hearing that is good because
we both have the original mother country, right? We stand from the same original mother country.
UK for me, UK. UK and Scotland and some others, but yeah, basically Europe, European. So and that's important to me too. Europe's important, but yeah. So this is good. This is good. This is very good. All right. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to being on your show again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, we'll bring on some other candidates and have a debate and crosstalk and everything. It's all good fun. So thank you so much.